Well, welcome to our Creating Datasets video series. This is number 5 in the series, and it's looking at location data, the data that we need for our dataset to be findable and accessible. The CIBA data series, Creating Datasets, has gone through starting with the background, showing what datasets are all about, things we have to think about as we prepare to create a dataset, and then looking at creating the parts of the dataset that give the information data, our actual data, and the explanation data. And this video number 5 is called Location Data. So location data comes after the my data and the how I got it data, and it's really about where you find it and linking and showcasing the data so that people can find it from other places and find other references from our data set. Ziva Hub. Ziva Hub is the place that we publish all our data sets. It is the UCT Open Data Repository, and it looks like this when you go in there. There's a landing page with the university in the background, and you'll find rows and rows and rows and rows of data sets with their titles and something which indicates what's inside them, and the authors, and you can just look at them randomly, or you can sort them in various ways. And now CIBA has its own landing page on Ziva Hub. In fact, you can go straight to the CIBA landing page and bypass the whole Ziva Hub hierarchy if you want to. If one goes to the CIBA landing page, you get 5 groups within our bigger group, CIBA, which roughly correspond with our discussion groups. And then under CIBA, you get all the data sets that have been uploaded in CIBA. And yours will be there too when you've uploaded yours. So my data, what's going to happen to your data when you want to publish it, or when you have to publish it, whether you like it or not? So the first thing is that you're going to have to get in to Ziva Hub, and you go to the login at the top, on the top right, and up comes a dialog box where you use your normal UCT login credentials, and the first time you do this, you'll get a sort of in-between sheet which sort of is connecting you with Ziva Hub, and you say yes, continue, and then you'll be in. And if you've never gone in before, you will now appear in Figshare and Ziva Hub with your UCT email address. When you open your data, just to the right of, just to the left of your picture, there is a thing that says My Data, and what opens up looks like this, and everything you've ever uploaded on Ziva Hub appears in this My Data tab. Nothing that you haven't personally uploaded will appear there. However, there are ways for people to collaborate on Ziva Hub, and one of the ways is by creating projects. So all the projects you own or participate in will appear in this tab called Projects. And the owner, the person who creates the project, invites people to participate. And if you get an invitation to participate in a project, you have to accept it. Otherwise, it expires, and then they'll have to invite you again. Collaborators can all upload items into a project. So a project is a really good thing to have for a project, and we'll get onto that a little later. The third tab that appears is a collections tab, and anybody can create a collection on Figshare or Ziva Hub. Things can be collected from anywhere on Ziva Hub or Figshare. I use it to make collections of SIBA related uploads which are not together for some reason. So for example, we may have several projects which all relate to wastewater biorefineries, and I would collect all of the published data in those different projects into a collection. I also collect all the SIBA thesis linked data sets into one collection, so that anybody can go and look at all our thesis related data sets. These collections are public. Once you publish them, they have their own DOI and are searchable just like an item is. So projects. How do you create a project for your data set? Now, most students do not need to create projects. They're usually created by supervisors. Usually the PI of a big project like a water research project or something like that. And then you as a student would just be invited to it. But we'll do this, how to create them anyway. So for each project in SIBA, we want it to be held together by a funding contract with deliverables or some connection in the sort of collective mind of SIBA. And just a warning here, when you publish articles, often or when you are part of a consortium doing research, they'll often offer to host your data. Don't ever accept that. Always publish it on Ziva Hub. So each project should contain any seminal images. We spoke about those in an earlier video. Any seminal images that connect to that project, and all data sets linked to journal articles or reports in the project, or code and simulations, or conference presentations, posters, slide sets, videos, should all go into Ziva Hub in that project. So how do you create a project? Well, you go along to projects and you click on create a project, and then the key thing is you come to various things that you have to fill in: the title, which is usually relatively obvious, the description, which can be changed at any time and should be as full as possible, the funding that the project comes from or comes with, and then the most important thing of all, which cannot be changed after you've created a project, is as follows: the project type. There are two types of project: an individual project, which actually could be started by anyone for anything. You can start one for your own, just to store your own stuff if you want to. You don't have to publish your project. But the type of project which CEBA projects must be created in are called group projects. So under project type, you must select group, and then you select the group, and you basically get the drop down menu under select group, and you scroll down to CEBA and you choose one of the CEBA subgroups to create your group in. And the reason we do this is that means that everything in that project will be forever associated with CEBA. It won't be taken away when that person leaves UCT. And the neat thing about it is that it doesn't use up any of your quota. Each person has quota on Ziva Hub, and it won't use any of your quota, so it doesn't matter if it contains quite big files. Then you add people. You can do this straight away, or you can go back and click on Manage in the project, and you add your people. You start typing them in, and and options will appear, and you select them, and they get the invitation, and they have to accept it before it expires. If you create a CEBA-related project, please include the data curator. At the moment, that's me, because it does help me to keep track of what data we've published. If I'm included in the project, I can see what's happening and I can anticipate what's coming. Right, then items. So those were projects. Now each project will contain one or more items, hopefully more usually. How do you go about creating each data set? An item on Ziva Hub stands for a data set, or anything you've uploaded. So like an item could be a single image, or it can be a single file of Excel which contains multiple bits of data in it, or it can be a slide set or whatever. Each of those is and an item can have multiple files in it. So each of those is called an item. So how do you create your data set? And when you upload a thesis data set, you will be doing this yourself in your own My Data space. So where do you put your data set? For thesis data only, you put it under My Data, and you click on Create a New Item, and there you go. But for all other items that are they all form part of some bigger CEBA project. For those, you put them into the project of which you will be part, because you're working in that project, and you click on Add New Content and select Create a New Item. Now you have to make your item findable. So you give it a title. Think carefully about your title, because your title is one of the items that makes it searchable. So make sure you include good keywords in your title, but don't make your title go on forever, because there are places for other words. And then your authors. These may not be identical to the authors in your article or on your report. Often they would be. The first author should always be the one who's done all the work. In this case, and you may include people here who did some of your essays and so on, but who were not part of the authorship of the article as a whole. when you upload for your thesis, include your supervisors as authors, because Figshare doesn't, Ziva Hub doesn't have a space for including them in a separate category. In categories, you have to select a category. There are quite a lot, and I started off being very bewildered by them. What I suggest is that you start typing something and see if it gives you something that looks reasonable. I suggest that in CBER, generally speaking, we always use chemical engineering not elsewhere classified. They don't have a good selection of chemical engineering categories. And bioprocessing, bioproduction, and bioproducts. We can then also have other categories, hydrometallurgy, other bio categories of various sorts. So just have a look and see what comes up. But those two, I suggest, are probably fairly safe bets for all our projects. And then you choose the group, which is one of those groups in CBER. It will usually come up automatically as being the group that the project is in. And the item type is usually automatically generated when you start uploading files, when you start dragging files in. But you can select it if you want to. And then keywords. Normal keyword practice. The thing you need to know about putting them in is after each phrase you must press enter, and then it will see that those words as a keyword. It will give you options as you type, and be careful because it's possible to select an option you didn't fancy, but you can always get rid of keywords that you don't want. And then in the description, basically put in something that's it's a bit like an abstract, but with information about the data set. So sometimes you'll actually use your abstract or a part of your abstract from your publication, and then add information that's specific to the data set. And all this information will ultimately help people to find your data set. They may read something by one of the other authors and find out what else they've published and come to this item. They may search under keywords, and if that word is in the title or category or keywords or somewhere in the description, it'll come up for them. So that was about making it findable, but the other thing is we need to link it to everything that matters. And of course, linking it is also a way of making it findable. If it links back to those things link back to it as well. So you must put in all the grants that are relevant to the project done to which this data set belongs, and then you put the resource title and DOI. That's the publication to which your data set is linked. When you upload your thesis data set, you won't have your the URL yet for your thesis, but you can put the title of your thesis in so long, and then when your thesis is published on OpenUCT, you can put the URL in here. And then references, any other references that are relevant. And the license you just leave as CC BY. I won't go into that. If you want to know what that means, you can ask me. And then under department or unit, what we're asking is that everybody will type out in full Center for Bioprocess Engineering Research, Department of Chemical Engineering, University of Cape Town. This makes we do this because it makes it findable again. If people search for SIBA, they'll find it because it's all our landing page and everything is entitled SIBA. But putting it, typing it out this way gives us a good footprint in terms of being found. So put in all the links. Right, now uploading your files to Ziva Hub. How to put your files on. The first thing that you need to know is that your item will look terrible unless you add something called a thumbnail. Even if you've got some really nice images in your dataset, Ziva Hub will randomly choose what to put on the sort of front page. And it might be boring text. It might even just be a little widget that says dataset. Whereas if you want your item to look good, you can upload an image, any sort of image, a photograph, a chart, a diagram, a flow sheet, anything that you think looks good, and it will appear instead. So you choose an image that obviously it must be relevant to your project, and save it as a JPEG titled thumbnail with some kind of sensible name that relates to your data set, and then upload it with your other files. The uploading goes like this. You put all your prepared files and your thumbnail in by, you can just drag them into this upload files, or you can browse for them. And if you add files later, after you've added the first lot, that little upload files box will appear down to the right. So just look out for it. It is there somewhere, because you can add files. You don't have to add all your files at the first up. You can keep on adding files as you go along. And then it will look like this. When you open it up, it will have all the files in it, only one if it's for an article, and of course you must include, as I already said, a contents file for navigating the data set in the blue box to the left and in the blue box to the right. Rajesh has included his full abstract from his thesis, which is also a very good idea. So now we get to the publishing part. So far it's all background work, nobody will know, you can get rid of it if you want to, and now we get to how do I get this item out there where people can see it. So the first thing is you have to fill in these things that appear in red. Until you do, and you can delete the item, but know that once you've reserved the DOI, you will not be able to delete the item. And once you have published it, you cannot delete it, because on publishing, it will get a DOI. So you can apply an embargo if you don't want people to access your data, but you want them to know that it's there. You can apply an embargo for anything up to 24 months, which will allow you to use some of your thesis data for writing articles before somebody else does. But only apply an embargo if you really need it. It's not good practice just to apply an embargo just because. And then you can generate a private link, which will allow anybody with the link to access your data set before it's published. This is helpful if you don't plan to actually publish before you send your thesis to your supervisors. I mean to your, well, it's helpful because your supervisor will be able to check out your data set, which is a good thing, but also you can give it to your examiners and they can look at your data set before it's published. But of course you can publish your data set if you're ready to at the same time as you hand in. And then you can reserve your DOI, which is a good idea if you're not planning to publish as you hand in, because you can put the DOI into the publication, into your thesis right there up front somewhere. You can then put it into your thesis as one of your references, and you can reference it throughout your thesis. And the same thing with any publication. If you've reserved the DOI, you can fully reference before you've even published. Then obviously there's the option to delete the item if you get cold feet, but you can't do that, as I said, after you've reserved a DOI. And then you must save changes. None of this will be saved. It'll all go out of the window unless you press Save Changes. However, it still won't be published. You'll be able to get in there and do stuff, but nobody else will be able to see it. Anybody with the private link will be able to get in there and see it, although nobody else will be able to do anything to it. Once you're ready to publish, you click on Publish, and then you click, and then that Save Changes will turn green and ask you if you want to publish or if you've changed your mind. So publishing is not the end of the line. Something happens after that, and I'll tell you what. After you select Publish, your data set goes to your item, goes to into the back rooms of UCT Ziva Hub, and it gets reviewed by a data curator, in this particular case by me. And it'll be sent back to you if there are things missing. For example, if you haven't put your funders in, or if I don't think that that your description's adequate, or so I even usually try to actually open up I don't always have the time, but I try to open up your files and make sure that I think that they're adequately formatted for publication. But it's much better if you can check that yourself, you and your supervisor or your fellow authors. Even after you've published, so if it all looks good, I just click Yes, Publish, and then it will be published and available for general looking at. But even after it's published, you can still edit the metadata. You can change and upload more files. And when you do that and click Save Changes, it saves them, but it doesn't yet publish them. And it goes through the same publication route. If you decide you want to publish your changes, you click Publish, and then it comes for curating, and then Ziva Hub will generate a DOI with a V1, version 1, or V2, version 2 at the end of it. So it keeps track of the versions as you alter your data set. So this can be quite helpful if you want to publish a data set for some situations where you want your data to get added to as you do the project. You can also actually plan to do that. But if you suddenly realize that you want to change something, or if your examiners come back and want something changed, you can do that even after publication. So what will it look like? In Rajesh's case, you can see it in the first column, the second row on the left there. Your your dataset will appear as one of these little blocks on Ziva Hub. And when somebody clicks on it, it will open up like this, and it'll tell you how many people have downloaded it, how many people have viewed it, how many people have cited it, all sorts of stuff like that. And it will allow whoever, whatever, to download, well, to look at, obviously, and also to download and cite the data set. So this is the end of this series on creating data sets. We've looked at the background behind why we have data sets published. We've looked at preparing our minds to get our thoughts around the data that we've got that we want to put in our data set. We've looked at the 3 different types of data and how to format them and get them out there so that our data set will be findable and accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And as always, I acknowledge eResearch and digital library services who are very helpful, and also acknowledge all the places that I've done short online courses helping me to get my mind around data sets.